We moved to Banner Elk to the Holston Presbyterian Camp in 1964 from Kingsport. And we didn't know then, but we were going to be there for 21 years at the camp. It was just a perfect place to raise our children. And the 21 years we were there are so varied, there's no way I could possibly describe it in a few sentences. But the children grew up there. Kirk was only 1.5 when we moved there, and when we left, he was a senior in college. So there's no way we can show it all, but those were very happy years. And even though I worked, taught school and things like that during that time, my main job really was being a mother. I felt very called to that, and watching the kids grow up and being a part of their lives was just wonderful. Barrett was at the camp, and so they got to see him a lot, even though he was not necessarily at home all the time. It was just a great time, and I'm so thankful for it. The house we lived in at the camp was brand new when we moved into it, and so it was very usable. It started out with 4 bedrooms, and before we left, we'd made the basement into the 5th bedroom, so we really had a great place for 4 children to be. And we had the groundskeeper at the camp kind of helped us keep up the manse, as it was called. And of course, the house belongs to the camp, but we felt like it was ours. We were the very first people to live in it, and we loved it. One of the luckiest things, I guess, for us in the summertime, our family was able to eat meals at the dining hall. And you talk about saving money, but it was also just a great treat that we got to go up and have good meals. We always had breakfast at our own house. And then the kids would roam around the camp all summer, do whatever they wanted to. This is when they were young. Later, they worked at the camp, all of them. But in those earliest years, they had free reign at the camp, could go around and join groups or go swimming or do crafts, whatever they wanted to. And I had a lot of freedom, even though I was there all the time, just not having to cook meals every meal, which was wonderful. One summer, at the very first of the summer, I had gotten all of Kirk's clothes straightened out and put in his chest of drawers. I had all the kids, we had all worked on our stuff, and had it. I said, now this is your clothes for the summer. You're supposed to wash them and put them back in the drawer, so forth. So Kirk, I guess he was 6 or 7, and every time I saw him eating meals and working around the camp, he looked great, looked clean enough. And I didn't understand until the very end of the summer that child had been just going swimming in his clothes every day, letting them dry on his body and wearing the same things the whole summer. So at the end of the summer, when I opened his drawers, they were still just neatly fixed for the summer. One thing that George would do when he was little, if he was being punished or if he was mad at somebody, he would yell the worst thing he could, and he would stand there and scream at me and say, "I hate God, I hate God." And that was supposed to really put me in my place. Well, from day one, we went to the Banner Elk Presbyterian Church, and the kids were a part of everything. I taught Sunday school in all levels, and later was an elder 3 times. That was, the church has always meant a lot to us, and of course was part of our heritage. Ellen, I was going to tell a Sunday school, when she was 16, she came back from Sunday school, and she said, "I don't want to go to Sunday school anymore. I will go to church, but I will not go to Sunday school." And so I figured she was old enough at that time to have made that decision. She was very serious, and so she didn't have to go to Sunday school anymore until she was an adult. During that time, one of the things I remember when the kids were little, that Meg would put on a play, and everybody had to be in the play, and she would get up the costumes and direct, and that gave her a lot of experience for what was coming later. We had a little foster child for 2 years, and when we got him, Kirk was 4, and Randy was 21 months, I think. He was mentally handicapped, but more than that, he was hyperactive, which is quite a combination. And he was not potty trained or any of those things, so I couldn't talk. He never did learn to talk much, or the other thing. But we had him. We loved him. All the kids loved him. But it was also very much a hardship in a lot of ways because there were a lot of adjustments we had to make. For instance, no babysitter would stay with him. So that was a big part of our life, though, and we're glad it happened. Winters in Banner Elk in those earlier days could be pretty bad, pretty rough, lots of snow, but we liked it, and the kids liked it. We missed school a lot, sometimes for a month and more. So we had lots of days at home. In those early days, the kids sledded and skied and all in our yard, and then later everywhere else. When skiing came to Banner Elk, then that was, Beech Mountain and Sugar Mountain came, and we all skied and then loved it when it was a snow day at school. While we were at the camp, I taught at Banner Elk Elementary School for 14 years. I taught first and second and third grade, and then I taught reading for 10 years. The last 10 years I taught there, I taught remedial reading. And I love teaching, and it was something that 3 of my children went into teaching, and I have 3 retired teachers in my family now. My mom had been a teacher, my sister, my grandmother on the other side, just lots of teachers in our family. When I went to get my master's at App, the very last of my time, I needed 3 courses one summer. And I said, this is going to be tough. Now, this is before computers, so we spent a lot of time in the library. And I said, I'm just going to have a hard time going to the library all the time. And Barrett suggested, why don't you just stay over there for summer school and finish up your courses? So I did. And I stayed in it was the first time that I had ever stayed in a dorm that had men and women in it. And it was so noisy that Barrett had to bring a fan over so I could study at night. But as I was leaving, checking out after this was all over, I said to the registrar downstairs, I said, this is the first time I've ever been in a dorm, been in a co-ed dorm. And he said, well, this isn't really a co-ed dorm. We have all women on one floor and all men on the other. And I said, oh, I know there were men on my floor. And it turned out that because my name was Dudley, they had put me on a men's floor, and I had been on a men's floor the whole time and didn't even know it. We had a lot of regular company during those years, people we loved, family mostly. My parents came about every 6 weeks, and they always brought tons of food, and of course visited the Fortunes just as well, because they lived here too, so they could see 7 of their grandchildren, of their 8 grandchildren, by coming to Banner Elk. And we just loved Mom and Daddy to death. Everyone did. And Rita, my Aunt Rita, also came. I think it was kind of hard on Claire. Claire always had Rita at her house, and we had Mom and Daddy. But for every meal, we all ate together, and we had so many good times. On Barrett's side of the family, Pappy remarried while we were early on at the camp to Carol, and the kids called her Granny, my kids did. In fact, for at least Kirk and George, that was the only grandmother on that side that they ever knew. Carol was a wonderful person. She was a friend to me. And best of all, I guess, she had these 2 daughters, Peggy and Alice, that immediately became part of the family. In fact, Peggy, when she started to Lees McRae, she lived her whole first semester with us. And Peggy and Alice are still part of our lives. Montreat was special to me my entire life. My parents went there on their honeymoon, and then many summers growing up, we went up and stayed with friends or rented a place, and I just loved Montreat my whole life. Well, right at the end of our period of time in Kingsport, we had been talking about having our own place at Montreat. Since we didn't actually own a house, we were always staying in manses. So my mom and dad gave us a lot at Montreat. Now, it was a high, steep lot. It was not anything expensive, and there was no road up into it or anything, but we were thrilled to death. And then one of the funniest parts of looking back is Barrett found a place that would sell, if you had a lot and $1 down, that was their advertisement, $1 down, if you have a lot, we'll put a shell house on your lot. And it was $12,000. And we took it. And so we had the lot, and of course we had to pay to put a road up, a driveway up to where the house had to be. And we had that house put up on the lot. Just the whole shell, it looked perfect from the outside, but the inside we had to do all ourselves later. And it was really kind of fun. Barrett enjoyed it, but for all the years that we had it, we were always, every summer, we were doing more work on the house. So we lived up there for a while. I don't mean to live, but we would go for our vacations up there for quite a while without plumbing. We would have to go down to the downtown and find a place to take showers, and the kids would go swimming and then take a shower. But we put the plumbing in, we got the electricity in, and we never did get a telephone for many years, and I did not want us to have a telephone there because that was kind of a disrupting influence in our life. But we did get a telephone, and it was quite a good thing. It made you in touch with the world, and when the kids and I were there without Barrett or something, we could talk back and forth. We had the house for 20 years, and when the time came to change from Banner Elk and from the camp to a new land and so forth, we had to sell the house. But we had many, many years of fun going up there. Lots of other people did too, and it was never fully winterized, but we had a heater in there, so we went until really cold weather, and then Barrett would have to go up and drain the pipes and all those things. But Montreat continues to be a place that I love, and so do the children. We all loved to go camping. Even though we worked at a camp, camping was kind of the theme, I guess, of our social life. Anyway, we went camping when Ellen was 10 months old. We went camping when Kirk was 5 months old on a 3-week trip. And all through our life, we just all loved to go camping as a family. And later, Barrett and I by ourselves. But the height of our camping really was a 5-week trip that we took out west. And Barrett actually had someone sub at the camp for him that whole time because we had to go in the summer. Meg had just finished the 8th grade, and she would not take off her knee socks out there in the boiling desert because she was afraid her legs were too white. And George had his 10th birthday while we were out there. The main thing maybe to remember about it, or one of the main things, is that Kirk didn't get to go with us. He was 7, he hated to drive, he hated to travel, and so we left him at the Fortunes House for the whole 5 weeks. But that was quite a trip, and those of us who went will never forget it. All 4 of our kids and some of our nieces and nephews and other relatives worked at the camp various summers through their teen years and college, especially their college years. George and Ellen were especially into it. George one year was the program director, so was Ellen one year. In fact, Ellen majored in recreation administration, so she brought even a friend from college to come and work. And we were just really lucky to have kids that grew up there, knew the philosophy of the camp, loved the camp, and so we used them, and they worked at the camp and were part of the things from day one. During the winter times, especially when my girls were in high school, and George probably too, but our meal times were really something. Now, I was working full-time as well, but at night, I always had at least 6 people at the table, 8 people at the table. There were 6 of us. Hutch ate with us for about 6 years. She ate supper with us every night. And then when Meg was dating Adrian, he came every night. So we had 8 at minimum at supper every night. I came in from work and fixed that supper. So that's something I remember real well. One of the things is we had a lot of arguments, and the kids would get loud or somebody would argue. And so one morning, just for breakfast with just our own family, I decided I would secretly put a tape in the cabinet and tape a recording, because I thought if they hear how they sound every morning getting ready to go to school, they'll quit so much arguing. So I got it all set up, and I was so pleased about it. And that morning, and this is the honest truth, nobody argued. And I felt so foolish because I never was able to set it up again because actually Barrett found it and I had to explain what I was doing. And that's true. We were really fortunate to find a family that wanted to stay in Montreat a week each summer, where we had a house, and we could stay in their beach house for a week every summer. We stayed there about 12 years, I think. When we started, the kids were little. It was a tiny house. It had 2 small bedrooms, but the kids were little, and the Fortune kids always went. We always never went, I don't think, without the Fortunes going with us. At first, they were living in West Virginia and would join us there, and then later they just came with us. But the 7 kids had a blast. When they first came, we put little sleeping bags out on the concrete porch, and the 7 little kids would just sleep in their sleeping bags, and they were perfectly comfortable and slept well. Later on, Hutch, when she was at the camp, she became part of our family, and she went with us every year to the beach also. And then later than that, Adrian, when he was dating Meg, would go with us. I think Marie went once. We had quite a crowd in that little house, and we have so many good memories of our time. It was near Holden Beach, but it was on the waterway. Perfect place.
How many bedrooms, bathrooms?
The house had 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, and twice when we were there, the bathroom had problems, and they had to bring a plumber to fix that. I don't remember how they fixed it, but it was quite a lot of us in one little house. In fact, at the end of our time going there, we started taking a tent, and some people would stay in the tent in the little backyard.
Was there air conditioning, or how they?
There was no air conditioning, but it was a pretty good breeze because we were on the waterway, and then we would drive around to the ocean each day. The only time I had a serious car accident, I had had a few in the snow, but before that, but I was coming back from Montreat by myself in the car, and I skidded on a curve coming into Banner Elk. And so I had to wear a neck brace, and the main thing was a long time of wearing a leg brace. And in fact, my foot still has some problems. But anyway, after that, my daughters were, you can tell how old they were because they were in high school. Meg was driving a car, and I had recovered within the year from my accident. So one icy morning, Meg skidded, actually totaled the car, and there were 4 girls in there, Ellen and Meg and Carol Fortune, and I can't remember who else, but anyway, they were not hurt, but they were taken to the hospital by the policeman. And when they called our house and said, your girls have had an accident, they're okay, they're at the hospital, I had a reaction to that. Barrett jumped in and said, let's go, let's go, let's go. And we got to the kitchen door, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't get out. I can't get out the kitchen door. My head won't go out the door. And I had some kind of amazing thought that my head had swollen up so big I couldn't get out the door, which showed I was still a victim of my own accident. So when Barrett was about 53 and I was about 52, we had decided it was time to leave the camp, that he felt like he was getting too old for that type of job. And we were excited. Our children were grown, and we knew it was just kind of time to do something different. So when we got ready to leave the camp, it was also the 30th anniversary of Holston Presbyterian Camp. So we planned a big party, and we had a wonderful send-off from the presbytery and from campers and staff people, and we left happily, even though we hadn't quite decided what we were going to do next. And that was September of 1985.